Hey everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with our Thursday edition of Today in Sports Betting. And today we're going to take a look at UFC 252 this weekend. Man, it has been a UFC heavy weekend, or week rather. They fought last night, fought on Saturday, fighting again this Saturday. We're going to run out of people that want to beat the hell out of each other, but a while. So this Saturday night's card, two of the best in the business. As always, my right-hand man coming all the way from the Long Island. He is the one, the only Scott Reichel. Scott, how are you today?
Doing pretty well. Just to correct you, it actually is not going to be UFC 252. That's going to be on August 15th between Cormier and Miocic. However, it is going to be a UFC fight night between Figueiredo and Benavidez, and I know we've already prepared that. So for title purposes, UFC 252 is actually going to be saved for the middle of August. So if you're expecting 252 plays, probably come back in about a month. But it should be a good card. It's a lot of fun.
Fight night 172 then?
Yes, it's Fight Night 172 or Figueiredo Benavidez. But either or, should be a lot of fun, and we'll see what happens. But for the most part, looking through this week, a lot of sports to talk about, a lot of MMA to talk about. You had the midweek UFC card, which I'm always a huge fan of on Wednesday. Bellator's coming back. They have a Friday event. And then you have the event we're about to talk about on Saturday with the UFC. So you have 3 MMA fights in roughly a 4-day period. And you also have the reason why I'm wearing the red shirt today. I know that Tiger usually saves it for Sunday, but I'm not sure if he's even going to make it to Sunday this weekend. He's coming back after a long layoff. So I decided to break out the Tiger red today on Thursday. Nice.
Very nice. And the third man in the ring, in the octagon, if you will, here today is going to be our MMA regular. He is all the way from Clarksdale, Mississippi, where he's keeping it real down there. He's always a fun guy to have on the show, and he helps us break down the UFC and NASCAR as well. It's Willy Mormon. It's Winning Willy. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? It's great to be back after missing one. You know, you hit it right on the head, Scott. I just completely forgot about the card. I don't know how I pulled that off, but I did. But we're back to talk about another card. And this one actually looks like it could be better than what one might originally think.
And yeah, I got a deep card of prelims, and then the main event card. Now, help me out, guys. Is any of this pay-per-view, or is this all going to be on ESPN Plus?
So the main card is actually going to be on ESPN Plus. I'm not sure if it's pay-per-view or not. Of course, ESPN Plus is a subscription-based service, so it kind of automatically is. But I'm pretty sure you don't have to pay an extra 60-something up top. So it might only be for the monthly fee of whatever it is. But every fight's going to be on ESPN leading up to the main card, and then they're going to switch over to ESPN Plus exclusively.
Who's got that going?
I think that's Willy.
Okay. Willy getting a little last-minute handicapping in. All right, so let's start it off, guys. They're going to start off with the big boys in the prelims, as Carlos Felipe goes up against Sergey Spivak. And as far as the nicknames go, I'm going to have to give the nod to Spivak here, as Carlos Felipe is boy with an I, and Sergey Spivak is, of course, the polar bear, as he comes from Moldova. Yeah. Okay.
Moldova. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and home to many polar bears apparently, and Felipe comes from Brazil. Willy, you're away in this one. Give us your thoughts on this first bout here.
All right, so Spivak hasn't looked very good since he joined the UFC, but I will say in his 2 losses he faced Walt Harris and Marcin Tybura, which those 2 losses aren't going to hurt your resume by any means. Meanwhile, Felipe is making his UFC debut, but I think he's the better striker here. If you look at his results throughout the quote-unquote amateur circuit, he's been a really good striker. He's got a lot of knockout wins. And 6 of Spivak's wins have come via submission, and he's only been knocked out once before in his career, which is something interesting to note. I believe that Felipe has the better hands there, though, and he should be able to keep this one standing up. I like the underdog here, Carlos Felipe, plus 125 on DraftKings.
All right, very good. Yeah, and I've even got him in bet online here at plus 132. So if you wanted to play the Brazilian, now he is a little underweight as far as the matchup goes, as Spivak checks in at 260 roughly, and Felipe gives up 15 pounds. He checks in at 245. So We'll have to keep an eye on the weigh-in and see how that goes. But you're not worried about the 15 inches there as far as the knockout power. And he is the knockout specialist, and of course he's got a 3-inch reach disadvantage. So we'll see how all that plays out. Scott, what are you looking at the dog here too?
For me, just correct. You said 15 inches. You meant 15 pounds, but either or.
15 inches.
Yeah. 15 inches away to win. But no. Overall, I'm skipping this fight. I do agree with Willy that, just simply put, I don't really think Spivak is that good. He came in with a little bit of hype. Of course, I can't fully blame him because Tybura and Harris are quality fighters. So that's not a huge issue that he's lost those 2 fights. I do agree that he definitely has I'd say a little bit of a weakness in the stand-up, or at least that is the case in this matchup. And I do think that Felipe, despite not having a solid nickname, does have a lot of solid power. And I think he should be able to display that. The issue that you have to wonder, though, is if Spivak can take it to the ground and pretty much lay on him. And I'm not really sure if that's the case with the weight potential disparity. So I'd wait this one out. But for me personally, I'm going to skip this fight. I feel like there are better opportunities later on in the card.
All right. So if you wanted to play a little bit of a sniff there on the underdog, certainly wouldn't be a bad thing. But for the most part, we say keep your powder dry for later in the card. And our next card, Davi Ramos, the Tasmanian Devil, goes up against Arman Sakarian, right?
Sounded good to me.
Okay. And I can't pronounce his nickname. Nope, not going to do it.
Okay.
Cats.
The site I'm using doesn't even have a nickname for him, so I think they just threw in the towel on that one.
He is actually from the United States. So these are a couple guys here going at it. And, Scott, give us your thoughts here.
So for this fight, as of right now, Sarukian is the favorite in this fight, 14-2 from Russia. Solid fighter. Overall, he won his last fight against Olivier Aubin Mercier, which is a decent win. Lost the fight before that to Islam Makhachev, who was 18-1. So I'll give him a little bit of a pass on losing that fight. Simply put, he's favored in this fight. The fight is projected to go the distance, as Foxbet currently has the distance to go to minus 188 on the yes, and the guy I just mentioned being minus 213 as a favorite. Unfortunately, the exact results props are not up, which, as you know, is my bread and butter. However, I did find it offshore for the guy that I mentioned by decision at minus 125 on 5 dimes. Do I love that? Not really. I'm not going to pull the trigger on it. I'm going to still wait until I see Foxbet and FanDuel give out their exact result props. If it's anywhere near plus 100, I'm going to take it. I think minus 125 is a little bit too juicy, and I'd rather wait to see any other books pricings there. But simply put, I'm getting a minus 213 favorite at roughly even money. The fight's projected to go the distance. I think this fight will be closer than people think. But at the end of the day, I think Ramos, who is a decent fighter, I'm a little bit concerned that he's just a little bit inferior to his opponent here, who is very solid in every single aspect, while Ramos is pretty much a submission or bust guy. And I think as long as the favorite in this matchup can stifle these submission attempts, I just think he's a better all-around fighter. So for me, I'm going to go with him by decision. I don't have an exact line. Minus 125 is available offshore, but as of right now, I'm going to wait a little bit for Foxbet and FanDuel to catch up to see if I can get some more value over the next couple of days.
Okay. Willie, how are you feeling on this one?
Okay, well, first I want to go back to the nickname like you. I don't want to try and pronounce it, but I did look it up because I was curious to see what it meant, and it means changes in English.
Okay.
What take that with you, Bill. He's been a pretty good fighter though. He's well rounded. He's got a 14-2 professional record with 5 KO, TKO wins as well as 5 submission wins. Ramos enters at 10-3 professionally, and he would love for this one to go to the ground. He's got 7 career submission wins. I believe that Sarukian wouldn't mind if this fight goes to the mat, but at the same time, he knows he has the advantage in the stand-up.
He's got the defense, though, which I like.
I think he's going to look to defend those takedowns for the most part and just try and keep this one standing up.
Mm-hmm.
All three of Ramos' losses professionally have come via decision, though. He's never been finished early, and I don't think he's going to get finished early here. It's interesting. It can't go well with both of us are on this, but I like Sarukin by decision as well.
Okay, well, that is truly the kiss of death right there. No doubt about it. So
you want to make it 3 for 3, Scott?
You know, I'm leaning this. I'm leaning the same way. That's the one that really stands out to me. Not a guy that Ramos is not a guy that's easy to finish early. I do think Sarukin is the obviously the better fighter. Yeah, I'll go with you. I'll make it 3 for 3 and put the complete show jinx on that one. All right. Moving right along, we've got a battle of the flyweights here as Malcolm Gordon goes up against Amir Albazi. Malcolm Gordon is, of course, nicknamed X, Malcolm X Gordon. And Amir Albazi lets his name stand on its own. These are a couple guys making their UFC debut.
I'm pretty sure Albazi's nickname is the Prince, from what I can see. So okay. I believe he has a nickname. Not really much better, but, it's still a nickname nonetheless. All right.
Well, a couple of guys that are, like I said, making their UFC debut here on this one. And, we'll see what you guys have this one capped out at as far as the odds go. Albazi is the favorite here at -185. Gordon checks in +185. Willie, what do you think?
All right, so we got two debuting fighters here, and I've admittedly watched a decent amount of their quote unquote amateur fights during my research, and I think this one's going to be a sneakily good fight. They both look like they're pretty decent all around fighters. They both look like they prefer to go to the mat more than they will anything else, but they both look like they both have a decent amount of good stand-up thing too. Good stand-up game too. I think that this one's going to get ended early though. I haven't found a line for it, but my pick's the fight to go the distance. No, I know that there will be a line for this, and if it's too juicy, I probably will stay away from it a bit in the end. But I don't think this one's going the distance.
And why is that? Whether do you have a couple of sluggers here, or what? What are you basing your thoughts on?
Well, they both just in what I watched, they seem like they're both just kind of flashy fighters, if you will.
Looking to land those big punches.
Right, or grab the crazy submissions, or they both like to stay active. It looks like.
Okay, all right, Scott, you on board with Willie on that one?
I think this fight is really tough to call. It also doesn't help when no sportsbook has any lines available besides the money line. So I can't really assess much in detail when I don't know what the lines I'm talking about. But for this fight, I actually understand where Willie's coming from. I would not be surprised to see one of these fighters win by submission. I think that even though both fighters have no submission losses, they're both still very prolific on the ground. And I think if one of them can get a good reversal in, there is a chance that one of them could end it early, maybe by a surprising Kimura or an armbar or something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see an early-ish stoppage here. However, there's basically no lines available, so I'm not even going to pretend to guesstimate what I think it's going to be. I guess if I had to look anywhere, maybe Gordon money line at +150, give or take, just because I think this fight's more even than the odds makers anticipate, and that's available on FanDuel. But I have to pass. I have no information, and this fight should be very close. I just think it's closer than +150. So I'm gonna pass. That's
and I kind of feel the same way. I would probably have a small lean just based on value at and I've got Gordon at +160. So I'd probably make a small play there. We'll see, what the odds are as far as
there's no way I'm gonna play this unless I see one of them by submission at like +400 and change maybe, which I don't expect to see. But right. I'm passing on that fight also. It's just a matter of these fighters both specialize in the same area, and I feel like you're kind of flipping a coin on which will get the better of the exchange for 10 seconds and get a sudden finish. So it's really a toss-up. But if I had to lean anywhere, probably the dog at that plus price, because I think that's a little bit too high. I would lean to Gordon around maybe +110, +120. +160 seems a bit excessive.
All right, very good. And moving right along, our next bout there on the prelim card is Brett the Pikey Johns against Montel Quick Jackson. A couple of guys that are good fighters, got good records, and have done well, looking to make a move up in the UFC rankings. Scott, how do you see this one?
So Brett Johns is one of the first recognizable names you're going to see on the card. And is he a great fighter? No. Is he bad? No. He's okay. I know that he ended up losing 2 of his last 3, but when you lose to Sterling and Munoz, those are 2 pretty good competitors in this weight class, so I'm not really going to fault him for that. Didn't win his last fight by 3rd-round submission against Tony Gravely by rear naked choke. He's pretty good on the ground, pretty good all-around fighter. Meanwhile, Montel Jackson, though, his nickname being Quick, as a whole, he's only had roughly 4 UFC fights, not including the Contender Series. He's 3-1 with his 1 loss coming against Ricky Simon, who's a pretty good fighter. However, he really hasn't fought anybody of note. His most recognizable win is against Brian Kelleher, we've talked about on the show, who I think is a mediocre at best fighter. I don't think he's really that good. However, Jackson is a pretty substantial favorite here as he's minus 200. Open up at roughly minus 240 or so, down to minus 200. There has been some money on Johns. I'm not going to play this fight, but in reality, based on track record alone, I think I have to link to Johns here just because of the actual resume. And I think Johns has faced off against tougher competition. So simply put, I just don't think Jackson should be that big of a favorite. And for that reason, I'll have to link to Johns on the money line, but I'm going to pass.
Yeah, Johns definitely caught my eye there at plus 172. I think there's a little bit of value in that play. Willie, how you feeling? You leaning towards the dog as well?
I'm actually not. I'm like you guys, and I don't actually plan on playing this fight because I could see this going either way. But neither of these guys have tasted defeat very often in their career. But I think there's a reason that Jackson is this big of a favorite. He's got a 4.5-inch reach advantage as well as a 3-inch height advantage. And, both of John's losses have come by decision in the past. I just think that the height and reach disadvantage is going to be a little too much for him. I think I like Jackson by decision if I was forced to play this one. But again, I have no interest in actually getting down on this.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense, and I'm sure that the odds makers definitely factored that in when it came to making this line. The main thing that I have here is that I know that the height advantage is important and everything. How much do you take into account the strength of resume? Because John's losing 2 of his last 3. The 2 very solid fighters in the weight class. It's kind of similar to what I saw with Rivera yesterday against Stamann, where I said that I liked Rivera – or not yesterday, 2 days ago, I said that I liked Rivera to win by decision. I didn't give that as a play, but that was my lean. And my logic was, yeah, he lost 3 of his last 4, but when you fight up against 3 serious contenders or former champions, I feel like your losses mean a little bit more. Or, they aren't as, I'd say, I don't want to say offensive, but they aren't as negative as people make it out to be. John's losing to Sterling, who's about to fight for the title, and Munoz is also a very solid fighter in the weight class. I think is definitely, I'd say, excusable. And I think that his opponent in this fight is a relative unknown who has beaten basically nobody in his entire UFC career. So I'd probably lean Johns for the experience because he's been in some wars before. But I definitely understand where you're coming from. That reach advantage is definitely tough to ignore.
Yeah, it really is. And, I definitely put a lot of stock in their resume and their matchups. I mean, if you want to equate it with football, it's like the difference between losing to Georgia Southern or Alabama. It obviously makes a difference. Not all losses are equal, and especially for young fighters, you can learn a lot. You can pick up tips and figure out what mistakes you've made and how not to repeat them. So I like the guys that are more battle tested for sure.
I think the main thing is the line there for me. Well, even though you like the favorite here, and none of us are going to play this fight, I think you'll agree that minus 200 does seem at first glance a little bit high for Jackson. I would assume that this fight, I would probably have assumed that Johns would have been closer to a pick'em, if I'm being honest. But with the height advantage and the reach advantage, Jackson minus 125, minus 130 to me makes sense. I think Johns being plus 170 is a bit ridiculous. Do you agree with that, Willie?
I did at first, and then, I just – it makes me kind of think that they know something we don't. I think this guy, this is going to be really one of his first real telltale signs, so to speak. But at the same time, maybe he is one of the next up-and-comers,
Yeah, I definitely makes sense. It was just a matter of first glance. I just think the line's a little bit too high on Johns, but I'm passing.
Okay, very good. All right, Scott, so we're going to take a look at a couple of fighters here. One of them is a Joe Irish Duffy. Joe Duffy is the same name as a gentleman that we have on our show frequently down there from Atlanta. No relation, I don't believe, as he's going up against Joel El Fenomeno Alvarez from I don't have a country of origin, and I'm going to guess Brazil.
It's from Spain.
Exactly. And Irish Joe Duffy comes, of course, from Ireland, actually, not actually a Boston fighter. And Scott, you talk about a reach advantage or a height advantage here. Alvarez, big guy for this weight class, is 6'2", and has a 4-inch reach advantage as well. What do you say on this one?
For this fight, once again, I'm sorry if people were expecting a ton of picks, but I don't really have one on this fight. The main thing here is that Duffy has been in the UFC for a long time, since 2015. He has lost each of his last 2 fights, one to a fighter we're going to be talking about in a little while, and the other to James Vick, who at one point was a potential contender before getting knocked unconscious by Gaethje and by Dan Hooker in back-to-back fights, so he kind of fell off a little bit. Whereas Alvarez has only fought twice in the UFC, and he's 1-1. However, Alvarez really good on the ground. When you're 16-2 with 14 submission wins, I feel you kind of know what you're doing on the ground. And Duffy, who has been pretty good so far in his UFC career, has lost by submission. He also has 10 submission wins. Kind of similar to the other fight that we were talking about before. Both fighters specialize in the same area, and I'm a little bit concerned by that. Now, I know if you want to look at the actual betting lines, it seems like odds makers have taken a stance, as Duffy is minus 365 to get the win, and Alvarez is plus 288. So the odds makers think Duffy's going to kill this guy. Do I think he's going to win by submission? No, which is Duffy's preferred outcome. So if I had to really lean anywhere, I would probably lean Duffy decision, but I have to pass it because there's no way I can take a guy who's minus 360.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Willie, any value that you see on this one? And it is, and we will say it does make it tough because they don't have a lot of the outcomes up. In fact, we don't even have a round total on this one. All we have is the money line odds of Joe Duffy.
Well, this fight actually does have a couple of more options on Fox Bet. I do see some methods here. Duffy by decisions plus 100. Duffy by submissions plus 350. Plus 100, I know that's kind of tough because Alvarez rarely goes to decision. He's gone to decision once in 18 fights. And Duffy's only gone to decision 4 times in 20 fights, which is just kind of scaring me off a little bit. I mean, if you want to make the argument for getting a minus 360 fighter who specializes in the same area as the underdog at plus 100, I mean, you're saving roughly 360 there. So I'd probably lean that direction. Plus 100, really not something I'm thrilled at, so I'm going to have to pass.
Okay. And, Willie, what are you thinking about this one? It looks like the odds makers have made it a mismatch. Like you said, Joe Duffy we've got it at 375 plus 310 for Alvarez. Alvarez does have a lot of advantages, but when you get on the ground, a lot of those advantages with reach and height, they all go away.
I'm taking a shot on this fight. I think, Duffy's the biggest favorite on this card, and I'm not 100% sure why. He's lost 2 straight, and he seemed to struggle in the stand-up in those fights. Alvarez is 16-2 in his career. He has 14 submission wins, but he is coming off of a TKO win. And I just think he's worth playing at this nice of a price.
Yeah, that's hard to argue with the value there, plus 3-1 roughly, even a little better than that. So, if I had to lean anybody, once again, making a value play here, picking up a little dog at plus 310.
At first glance, when I was looking at both these fighters, I was a little bit shocked that Duffy was this big of a favorite. But at the end of the day, I've seen Duffy fight. Is he a good fighter? He's okay. That's how I'll phrase it. I don't think he's a superstar by any means. Of course, his last 3 fights have gone against, I'd say, decent competition. I wouldn't say amazing competition, but you lose to Poirier in 2016. I'm going to give you a pass on that one. But, do I really think he should be that big of a favorite? Probably not. But once again, broken record alert, I'm going to pass.
Okay. All right, Scott. Well, maybe we'll have a little better luck with this one as Grant Dawson goes up against Nad Narimani in a catchweight fight between 2 guys that are usually fighting somewhere around 145, give or take. And the The odds makers on this one have installed another pretty big favor there for Grant Dawson at minus 234. You can get Narimani at plus 199 over at Bet Online. So, Scott, any thoughts on this one?
No. Simply put, I know I'm really just repeating the same thing over and over again. This fight, every fight that I've noticed where I thought about maybe making a lean, both fighters specialize in the same area. So it's really difficult to try to predict what a fight's how it's going to work out. Narimani has 5 wins by submission, 0 submission losses, pretty good on the ground. Yet the favorite here in Grant Dawson has 11 wins by submission and 0 submission losses. So they both like to take it to the ground typically, and Dawson is expected to get the better of those exchanges. So for me, I would probably lean to Dawson by decision, but in reality, this FoxBet actually does have some exact results out here, so that actually is something that's a nice change of pace. But Dawson by submission or decision is minus 162, and I have no interest in playing minus 162. So I guess I have to pass. I know that it's annoying, but Dawson by decision at plus 150 is probably where I would lean, and that's, I guess, I mean, if you're looking at comparing lines here, you can take him as a favorite as what you said are roughly minus 240, or you can get him by decision at plus 150, getting roughly $4 of value there in comparison. So I probably would lean to Dawson by decision, but I'm going to pass.
All right. Willie, let's make believe that some of our viewers would actually like to make a bet on this fight. How are you feeling?
Well, I think both of these fighters are pretty good, in my opinion, and they both slightly prefer the ground game more. I will say I don't have a huge feel on who's going to win this one, but I do believe that this fight will go the distance, and I'm going to make 2 plays on it. I'm going to take both fighters by decision or technical decision. You get plus 150 on Dawson and plus 350 on Narimani. So, you'll either have the half unit or 3.5 unit profit.
All right. And, yeah, the over is pretty well juiced. I don't know that I have any interest in playing the over 2.5 at minus 175. That seems like a pretty hefty price to pay, but it is certainly indicate that the bookmakers think this one is not going to end early at all. So play that for what you will. Okay, guys, moving on to the last fight of our prelim card as a Roman.
I got to warn the viewers, I actually have plays on a decent amount of these upcoming fights. So, I'm sorry it took so long, but I'm not going to keep you waiting much longer.
All right. And I do make fun of you, Scott, but, we talk about it a lot. You can't force plays. And if you don't have a feel, if the numbers don't match up with how you've got an handicap, you've got to take a pass. You just do it. So it's the way it works. And, in the UFC, even short attention span people like us, there's going to be another fight coming. So relax, go make a sandwich, just enjoy the fight as a fan. You don't have to force plays on each and every fight. So, I'm giving you a hard time, but in reality, it's a solid strategy and it's a winning strategy.
I think you agree with me. First glance at the card, really not much that jumps off the page. I'm sure the majority of casual MMA fans, which I obviously know more than the casual fan, but most casual fans have probably never heard of about 90% of the people on the card.
You can tell by how I'm struggling with the names. That Joe Dufai.
Well, that one's a given because that's the name of. He shares a name with a personal friend of ours. So
right. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, there's a lot of fighters that I'm not familiar with. Just being, I would say, at best, a casual fan. I have upgraded to a casual fan from being someone who didn't watch it hardly at all. So yeah, this is all uncharted territory for me. For sure. And, full disclosure, normally I would cap out a card. I didn't devote as much time to this as normal because of being sick yesterday. I pretty much took away everything that I wanted to do as far as my schedule goes. And so I don't have a lot of thoughts on these. I'm mainly just kind of driving the ship today, seeing where you guys are at. So, all right. So let's take a look here at the headline bout of the prelim card, if you will, as Roman Dolidze goes against Khadiz Ibragimov.
Yep, that was solid right there.
Okay. A couple guys that fight, I guess it's going to be a light heavyweight fight here, around 205.
Yeah.
And yeah, kick us off, Scott. What do you think?
So for this one, I actually have a play. Sound the alarms. I know that Dolidze is the favorite here. He's undefeated at 6-0. He's currently a minus 190 favorite, give or take, depending on where you shop around. If you look at his results, he's 6-0, 3 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. However, he will be making his UFC debut, which could be concerning for some people. However, when your opponent is 0-2 in the UFC, I feel like that's usually a pretty good sign for the guy making his debut. Both of Ibrahimov's losses in the UFC have come in the third round, one by submission, one by decision. And even though Dolidze has 3 wins by knockout, he is definitely projected to win by either decision or submission. And Fox Bet does a really good job with these double chance bets in the bet boost where you can get 2 outcomes and you win either one. So for me, one of them that I was looking at was Dolidze by submission or by decision in this double chance situation. And I see it available at plus 100 on Fox Bet in that double chance. For comparison, it's minus 110 on FanDuel. So you do save roughly 10 cents of juice. You've seen from the underdog in this fight that he has had the weakness in the UFC to lose by submission and decision. And even though Dolidze has never been to a decision before, I do think that plus 100 is definitely worth it when you can cut roughly 90 cents worth of juice into it. So for me, it's one of my favorite plays on the card. I like this Dolidze by submission or decision at plus 100 on Fox Bet.
Okay, very nice. Getting a little double dip there for your money. Willie, how do you have this one handicapped?
It's interesting that this is one that Scott had a strong feeling because I don't really have one on it. I definitely think there's a reason why Dolidze's a favorite here, but at the same time, Ibrahimov, I guess, I don't know. Yeah, I think he's a pretty good fighter himself though, and with an 0-2 record in UFC, as you alluded to, that means he's probably got to win this one, or he doesn't have too many UFC fights left. So there's a little extra motivation from his side, and I'm leaving this one alone.
Now, this is one of the shorter. This is the shortest bout as far as how the odds makers have it. It's the only one that's 1.5 on the board as far as the over/under goes. It's posted so far. Now we do have some that haven't posted yet, so we'll see. But so far, this is the only one that's minus that is 1.5, and the over is juiced at minus 185. Either one of you guys have any value there on the over/under?
For me, since I have submission decision, I would probably lean to the over. But I find it very fascinating that Dolidze hasn't fought since 2018, and yet he's still a decent favorite in this fight. So once again, we've been talking about how odds makers obviously will bait you to take some underdogs and take some whatever. The fact that Dolidze is making his UFC debut at minus 190 as a favorite, and he hasn't fought since 2018, makes me kind of believe that this is just a bad matchup for Ibrahimov, I should say. So I'll lean to the favorite there for the total. I guess I'd lean over, but not really looking to pull the trigger on the total there.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right, gentlemen, that's through the prelim card, and on to the main event we go. As a flyweight bout, the number 4 contender, Alexandria Pantoja, goes up against Askarov, the number 7 contender there. And that is going to be the first bout of our main event card. Pantoja, of course, is the Cannibal, and Oscar is the Bullet. Two pretty good nicknames there as the Brazilian faces off against the Russian. Scott, how do you have it?
Right after giving out another play, I pass because I think this fight is going to be very close. Askarov is 11-0-1, so he's undefeated. A very solid fighter as a whole. He ended up having a 3-round draw with Brendan Moreno in his UFC debut back in September 2019. Split draw, so pretty interesting stuff. But he beat Tim Elliott, the guy who controversially won yesterday, but much to the happiness of Scott Steen, who gave out Tim Elliott by winning yesterday. But for this fight, Pantoja is a little bit of an unknown. 22-4 is still very solid, but he has been in the UFC since 2017. Just most people haven't heard of him. But as a whole, I guess I'd lean to Pantoja, but I'm really passing. I think this fight's pretty even, and I don't really see much of an edge, so I'm going to pass.
Okay. Well, yeah, I had this one capped out as pretty even as well. And that's why I think there's value on Askarov at plus 175. What are you thinking on this?
Yeah, I actually believe there's a little value on the underdog as well. Pantoja, as Scott mentioned, he's been in the UFC for a while, but he's never really been heard of. He's got an experience edge in this fight, but at the same time, I don't think he's really got that much of an edge in either side. And plus one. You said you had plus 175.
Right.
Yeah, that's better than what I see at DraftKings. But I think that's a good price there.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yeah. Anytime you got a guy with a record like that and getting plus money, especially almost 2-1, it's certainly going to get my attention. And I'm going to have to take a sniff on the underdog here as well. So, all right, moving on up the main event card. Our next fight is the only ladies fight on the bill tonight, as Ariana, the Queen of Violence, Lipski, goes up against Luana Dread Carolina. And when I first looked at that, I thought it said Bread, which would have been a terrible nickname. Dread, much better. Willie, the Lipski versus Carolina fight. This is a pretty evenly matched fight. Lipski's a small favorite, minus 128. How do you have this one?
I like this one to go the distance. 4 of Lipski's last 4 fights went to the distance, while each of Carolina's last 3 went the distance. Neither one of them seemed to be finishing fighters at an outstanding rate early. And I have a feeling that this one's probably going to be a longer, dragged-out fight.
Okay. All right. Very good. And as the women so often do go the distance, the odds makers have juiced it accordingly. The over 2.5 is minus 250. So Scott, let's tell our audience where the value is on this fight.
Well, I do agree that on Fox, but with a fight to go the distance being minus 350, this fight should go the distance. And for that reason, I like Lipski to win by decision, which is available if you shop around at plus 162 on Fox Bet. Simply put, Carolina's a relative unknown. She's only fought once in the UFC after making it through the Contender Series, and she ended up beating Priscilla Cachoeira by decision. I hope I didn't butcher that name, but that was over a year ago. She won by unanimous decision, but Priscilla's a relative unknown who is 9-3 in her career, but I never heard of her, if I'm being honest. Lipski, even though she is 2-2 in her last 4 fights, she has faced off against harder competition. She's 1-2 in the UFC, but she has faced off against decent competition. I know Molly McCain lost yesterday, but she's still a decent fighter. She lost to Joanne Calderwood, who's also pretty good, a unanimous decision. And she did win her last fight against Isabella de Padua by decision last November. Both fighters, I'd say, are average at best, but I think Lipski, who's been in the UFC for a longer period of time, has faced stronger competition. I think there's a reason why she's favored in this fight, and you can get the minus 133 favorite or roughly plus 162 when fight to go the distance is minus 350 on Fox Bet. So for me, best of both worlds, Lipski by decision, plus 162.
Okay. All right. Very good. It's a way to turn a couple of prohibitive favorites there into a bettable number. And I know that you do a very good job of doing that as opposed to laying the big wood on those fights. So solid. Queen of Violence over Dread is that one. All right, guys. And now we're starting to pick up the pace here a little bit as Mark Diakisi goes up against Rafael. We're going to go with Fiziev. Mark Diakisi is the Bone Crusher. The Bone Crusher. Solid nickname right there. Rafael is Ataman, which I don't know what that means in his native Kazakh language. And of course, Mark Diakisi is from that hotbed of UFC activity, the Congo Kinshasa, which I've never actually heard of. Congo Kinshasa. Man, you learn something new on the show all the time. Not just fighting, but you learn a little geography. You learn pronunciation.
I was going to say, usually I just learn about alternative pronunciations. It's usually the main thing that I learn on this show.
You learn how the name probably is most likely not pronounced. So, Scott, how do you have this one?
So I do have a play on this fight here.
Woohoo!
Oh, I know, craziness. But looking at the actual breakdown here, I do think that the favorite should be a bigger favorite here, honestly. Diakese I actually like. I think he's a very solid fighter. The underdog here is a little bit unknown. I know he's 7-1, but he's only had 2 UFC fights and he's 1-1. So he hasn't really been that great since making the transition. Meanwhile, the Bone Crusher has been he kind of bounced back after a 3-fight losing streak. You lose to Dan Hooker in one of those fights, they'll give you a pass. He did beat Joe Duffy, and he did win his last fight against Lando Venata by decision. I know that if you want to do comparisons here, you know I'm a fan of the double chance results here for the UFC fights. The Bone Crusher to win by knockout or by decision is -180 on FanDuel. However, it is available at -143 on Fox Bet. So you are saving roughly 37 cents of juice. I don't typically give out plays with that much juice. You know, I'm usually trying to hunt for plus money, something along those lines. But I'll take the Bone Crusher by knockout or decision at -143 on Fox Bet. I really just think he's the much better fighter in this matchup.
Well, now, Scott, let me ask you, because I've got him just on the straight money line at -156.
That's definitely lower than what I see on all these other things. I see him at I believe I saw him at -170 and change pretty much everywhere I looked. So that's actually a very good line that you got there.
Yeah, I would probably lean just taking the straight money line versus the double chance like that if you can get it that good of a price. All right, very good. Willy, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I'm with you, Scott. I think that Diakese is the much better fighter here. I do believe that this one's going to end early because Fiziev, I guess we'll go with. He's not a terrible fighter, I don't think. He's got a lot of knockout wins under his belt as well, so that means he's probably going to be active and going to be trying to get inside there, trying to minimize that reach advantage a little bit. But I think Diakese is the better fight. I like Diakese by knockout. I don't have a Fox Bet pulled up, but I know they have a line for it, don't they, Scott?
Well, I see it on FanDuel at +440, but I'm just going to look really quickly to see if there's a better price. I see 440 is the best line you're going to get on FanDuel, which I actually like as well. I think that's also a good look. I know I mentioned knockout decision. For value there, especially considering the fact that Fiziev did lose by knockout in his UFC debut, so even though he has 1 knockout loss in his career, 1 out of 2 against superior competition is definitely something worth mentioning. But the Bone Crusher has no knockout wins since his UFC debut back in 2017. So for that reason, I'm going to stick to the safe play, but for value, I do agree, +440 Bone Crusher by knockout does have some value to it.
All right, solid guys. All right, moving right along, we come to the penultimate bout of the evening as number 6 contender Jack Hermansson goes up against the number 7 contender in Kevin Gastelum. A couple of nicknames here. Jack is, of course, the Joker. Kelvin does not have a nickname. He looks like a very, very mean guy. Guys that can fight around 185 in this one. And Scott, how do you have it capped? The odds makers on this one have made Hermansson a small underdog as he is -107, and Gastelum is -113. That's the closest bout of the evening.
Yeah, for this fight, I'm going to have to pass. I know
No
that
way.
I think this fight is close, but in reality, I have never been a big Gastelum guy. I know that he made his reputation on knocking out Bisping and sending him into retirement a couple of years ago, along with his championship fight against Adesanya a couple of years ago, which Adesanya ended up winning by decision. But Gastelum put up a hell of a performance, and that's why he's a well-known guy. However, he's lost each of his last 2 by decision, 1 against Darren Till by split, 1 against Adesanya by unanimous decision in the 5th. Meanwhile, Hermansson is a decent fighter. He lost to Cannonier, who is the 2nd contender in this weight class, so I'm not going to give him much of a hard time on that one. I do think Gastelum has faced against harder competition, but Hermansson's also 6'1", and Gastelum is extremely short at 5'9", yet he's been able to overcome that his entire career. So if I really had to lean anywhere, I would probably lean to Gastelum by decision, which is actually a pretty solid return there for a plus price, especially since this is going to be a 3-round fight. So you do have a pretty good chance of it going the distance. But Gastelum to win by decision is available at plus 260 on FoxBet, which I think is a pretty solid deal. Sorry, I'm just pulling this up on FanDuel for comparison purposes. So just bear with me for a second. But just to touch upon everything I said, Gastelum has the better resume. I do think that Hermansson has some talent, and I think he has the ability to use his reach to create some issues for Gastelum. Gastelum's face off against better competition. So for me, I think plus 260 for Gastelum by decision is where I would lean. I'm going to pass, though, because I really think Gastelum's an overrated fighter. So I'm not really that interested.
All right. Willie, this is a fight that has it looks like a decided advantage for Hermansson as far as the tail of the tape goes, as he has a 6-inch reach advantage and a 7-inch reach advantage when it comes to leg kicks. We know Gastelum has been able to overcome those odds throughout his career. Does he do it again Saturday night?
I don't think so. As soon as I saw the reach and the reach, especially the leg reach advantage, that doesn't match up well, as we saw in yesterday's main event, where Ige could not get inside to save his life to even hit him. I think it's going to make a difference. I actually have two plays here. I like Hermansson by KO, TKO, or decision at these are both at FoxBet. It's at plus 150, and then I like Jack Hermansson to win round 1 at 8-1.
And 8-1, really? That's a hefty price there for winning the first round.
That's what I thought too. I just think his size is going to make a difference, especially early. I think if Gastelum's going to win this fight, he's going to have to drag it out some. He's going to have to wear it down because I'm sure he's in the better condition and better shape.
Okay.
Hermansson to win round 1 especially looks juicy at 8-1.
All right, solid. I like that play quite a bit. All right, guys, and now we're taking a look at the title bout here, the headline bout, as Davidson Figueiredo goes up against Joseph
Benavidez.
Huh?
Benavidez.
Benavidez. Yeah, I was getting there. Figueiredo is, of course, do Daguerra, which I do not know what that means. He's from Brazil, something there in Portuguese. Two little fellas, scrapping around 125. Willie, take us home. Who do you got here?
Surprise here. I don't have a very big feel on this fight. I think this one's going to be a very good one. This could be one of the best ones we'll see from Fight Island because these little guys can throw some hands. But if I had to play this fight, I'd probably lean to the under. Okay.
And it is pretty well juiced. They're under 4.5 at minus 185. So you are paying a little bit of a price. Figueiredo is a 2-1 favorite here, minus 205, and Benavidez is plus 175. So Willie, you're on the under. Any other plays there?
Not right off the top of my head. Like I said, if I was to play the under, I'll probably take under 3.5 rounds and cut the juice down to minus 118.
Okay, that's not bad. Scotty, what about you? Got a feel on this one?
Yeah. So I do have a play on this fight. For me, I'm going to take the favorite. I'm going to take Figueiredo, and I like him inside the distance, which is available at plus 100 on FoxBet. However, it's not phrased inside the distance. It's phrased rounds 1 to 5, which is the exact same thing. So I like Figueiredo inside the distance at plus 100. Simply put, they already fought. Figueiredo knocked them out. Of course, it did not come without controversy, as Figueiredo missed weight. And there was also an incidental headbutt, which opened up a massive cut on Benavidez's head. So you have to wonder if some of that was fluky. I don't think so. Benavidez, despite being a very solid fighter for a long period of time, he is 35 years old, so he has been around the block a few times. And Figueiredo is 32, a little bit younger, still in his prime, and he already won the first matchup by knockout. I think the fact that the under 3.5 is minus 118 makes you believe that the odds makers expect there to be some type of finish. This fight to go the distance is plus 125, so they expect the fight to be stopped at some point. and I think Figueiredo has a much better chance of stopping it than the opposition here. So for me, I think Figueiredo's better all around. 18-1, very tough to go against the guy who's 18-1, who's already won the first matchup, and now they have the rematch. So for me, I'll take the Figueiredo inside the distance at plus 100 on Fox Bet.
Okay. All right. Very solid. I like that. I like that play as well. All right, guys. Well, there you go. That's our card. Nice job breaking that down. As there's honestly, when you're doing 2 cards a week, or 2 cards every other week, whatever, there are going to be some weak bouts, and there are going to be some ones that you probably don't have a good feel for. So, like I said, make those your go make a sandwich, crack another beer, and get ready for the next one. So, very good job. I know I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun Saturday night. Willie, thanks for joining us, man. Had a blast. Good to have you back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Hopefully I don't miss another one,
Right. Don't forget to set that alarm. And Scotty, thanks for taking the helm yesterday. You did a great job, and thanks for being back in the right-hand chair here today.
Yeah, so far so good. I know by the time that this video gets uploaded, maybe my golfers will implode. But Cantley so far 2 under, which is very solid, and Woodland's 1 under right now. So after most of the golfers this morning fell off a cliff, it appears we potentially might have avoided the onslaught. So we'll see what happens so far. I know that for yesterday's UFC card, I ended up going 2 and 3 for plus 2.1 units. Solid day. I hit the Chimaev second round submission at plus 650, which was a very nice payday there. But hopefully Saturday's card will be just as profitable, but only time will tell.
Good. All right. Thanks very much. And as always, thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow talking with Curtis over there from the Racing Dudes about a couple of cool races that are coming up this weekend as Saratoga gets going. And we have the Kentucky Derby winner that was disqualified last season making his season debut. So we'll be talking about that with Curtis Colward on Friday. And then, of course, Winning Willie will be back to join us as we break down the NASCAR race on Saturday.
Congrats to Chase Elliott, by the way. Congratulations to Chase Elliott. He won $1 million yesterday. Pretty good day.
Yeah, $1 million richer winning the All-Star race. Very good job. It was kind of fun to see it at a different track besides Charlotte as they butted heads and banged there at the Bristol Motor Speedway. So they'll be back here on Saturday. We'll be back on Saturday to break, or on Sunday. We'll be back Saturday to break that match or that race down. So until then, don't forget to stop by and check out winnersandwiners.com for great content on all the sporting stuff going on in America each and every day. And we're getting ready to start. Next week we'll be talking a little bit baseball is going to get going. So we're getting close to real sports, guys. We've been telling you for 3 months, sports are coming back, and so far so good. We'll see what happens. All right. So for myself, for Scott Reichel, for Winning Willie Mormon, we appreciate you guys stopping by and joining us here today on the show. We'll be back and do it again tomorrow. Until then, have a great day. Stay safe, and hope all your bets hit on tonight's action, whatever you have, a little golf or whatever you happen to be playing. Hope they're all winners. All right, you guys take care. Have a great day. We'll see you again tomorrow.